Hey Reddit, this is something I've never told a soul. Not my wife, not my kids, not even my closest friends. And I'm not sure why I'm writing it here now. Maybe because I'm getting older and I'm afraid I'll leave this world with this secret still locked inside me. I have been married to my wife, Elle, for 45 years. We've had our share of ups and downs like any couple, but overall we built a life together, a family, a home, and decades of memories. She's a good woman. She's been my partner through everything. But 25 years ago, I betrayed her. It was one night. I was 43, traveling for work, lonely, and stupid enough to let a moment of weakness turn into something I can never undo. She has never known. At least, I don't think she has. And we've gone on to live a good life since then. But lately, as I watch her laugh with our grandkids or hold my hand when we walk, I feel this crushing guilt. And I keep asking myself, after all these years, do I take this to my grave? Or do I finally tell? It was a business trip to another city. Back then, I was in middle management for a company that sent me to conferences a few times a year. Most of the time, I'd just go, do my job, call home every night, and come back. Now, that night was different. The conference ended early, and a group of us went to the hotel bar. One of my colleagues, S, was there. She was younger than me, single, and had a way of making everyone around her feel like the most interesting person in the room. We talked for hours, moving from the bar to the quiet lounge area. I told myself it was just conversation, but there was a pull there I didn't want to acknowledge. When she put her hand on mine, I didn't move it away. By the time we went upstairs, I had already crossed the line in my mind. The rest happened quickly. I'd love to say I stopped myself, but I didn't. I left her room before dawn, took a long shower, and stared at myself in the mirror. And I knew instantly that I had done something I could never undo. I woke up in my own hotel room feeling like I'd swallowed a stone. I called Elle, just like I always did when I was away, and forced my voice to sound normal. She told me about her day, asked if I'd had dinner yet, reminded me to bring back a souvenir for the kids. I said, "I love you," before hanging up, and for the first time in our marriage, the words felt heavy in my mouth. At breakfast, I saw S across the lobby. She gave me a small smile, like nothing monumental had happened. I avoided her for the rest of the trip. We didn't speak again, except for a polite goodbye when the conference ended. On the plane home, I kept telling myself it was just one mistake, that it didn't mean I loved Elle any less, that it wouldn't happen again. But every mile closer to home made the guilt grow louder. By the time I hugged her at the airport, I felt like I'd brought something toxic back with me, something invisible, but still dangerous. When I got home, life carried on like nothing had changed. The kids were still in school, Elle was still working part-time, and we had the same nightly routines. But inside, I felt different. For weeks, every time Elle touched me, a hand on my shoulder, a kiss before bed, my mind would flash back to that night. I hated myself for it. But I also knew if I confessed right then, it could destroy our family. So I buried it. I told myself I'd make it up to her in other ways, be more attentive, help more around the house, never let myself slip like that again. And I stuck to that. But a strange thing happened. The better I tried to be, the more it felt like I was compensating for something she didn't even know about. And the longer I kept the secret, the harder it became to imagine telling her. Days turned into months, months into years, and now decades. The years after that were full, raising our kids, paying off the house, dealing with job changes. We had our share of arguments and quiet spells, but nothing unusual for a long marriage. Elle never gave me a reason to think she suspected anything. She trusted me completely, and that trust was both a blessing and a curse. It made life easier, and it made the guilt harder to carry. Sometimes, late at night, I'd watch her sleeping and wonder if I'd stolen something from her without her ever knowing. A kind of innocence in how she saw me. I told myself the guilt was my punishment, that living with it was the price for keeping our marriage intact. But guilt is a strange thing. It doesn't fade. It just finds quiet corners to hide in until something brings it rushing back. About 15 years after it happened, we were at a wedding. During the speeches, the groom stood up and talked about loyalty, about how he could never imagine being with anyone but his wife. Everyone clapped and laughed, but my stomach tightened. On the way home, Elle squeezed my hand and said, "That was sweet, wasn't it?" I smiled and agreed, but inside, I felt like a fraud. That night, lying in bed, I thought about how long I'd kept this secret. By then, our kids were grown, we had grandkids on the way, and our life looked exactly how I'd hoped it would. But the memory of that one night was still as clear as if it had happened last week. It hit me that even if she never knew, it was still shaping the way I saw myself, as a man who had failed her once, no matter how good I'd been since. There was one night, about 10 years ago, when I came close to telling Elle everything. We were sitting on the porch after dinner, watching the sunset, and she was talking about how proud she was of our marriage, how we'd never had any big betrayals like some of our friends had gone through. I felt my throat tighten. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear her words. I opened my mouth, ready to say it. But then she smiled at me in that warm, trusting way she always had, and I froze. I couldn't do it. I told myself it was kindness, that there was no point in hurting her now, decades later, when it would only shatter her world. So I said nothing. We sat there holding hands, and she never knew how close I came to changing everything. That night I didn't sleep, and the next morning the guilt felt heavier than ever. As the years went on, Elle only became more of the person I admired. She was patient with the grandkids, kind to strangers, and still laughed at my corny jokes. Sometimes, when she was telling a story or singing along to the radio, I'd get this wave of gratitude and shame. Gratitude that she'd chosen to share her life with me. Shame that I'd once thrown that away for a few hours of selfishness. I started noticing little things I'd taken for granted. The way she always cut the crust off my sandwiches because she knew I didn't like it. How she rubbed my shoulders after a long day without me asking. How she made sure my favorite mug was always clean for morning coffee. And I thought, if she knew what I'd done, would she still do those things? Would she still look at me the same way? Would she still want to hold my hand in public? Those questions never really left me. Over time, I stopped thinking of it as the thing I did and started thinking of it as the thing I am carrying. It was like a locked box I kept hidden deep inside. I never opened it, but I always felt its weight. Sometimes I'd catch myself rewriting history in my head, imagining my life without that night. I'd picture a version of myself who could look Elle in the eyes without that flicker of shame in the back of my mind. But that version didn't exist. This was the reality. I had cheated, and she had no idea. And while she thought our marriage was built on perfect trust, I knew there was a crack running through the foundation. The strange thing is, the longer I kept it, the more it became part of my identity. I was a good husband, except for that one night. I was an honest man, except for that one truth I never told. It was like living in a house that looks solid from the outside, but has one hidden, rotting beam. In the past few years, that's the thought that's been keeping me up at night. Not the night itself, not even the guilt anymore, but the idea that I could die without Elle ever knowing the truth. It's not about unburdening myself for comfort. It's about wondering if she deserves to know the full story of her life with me. I think about if something happened to me suddenly, a heart attack, a car accident, and she only ever knew the version of me I let her see. Would that be mercy, or would it be robbing her of the truth? Sometimes I convince myself it's kindness to keep it buried. Other times, I feel like a coward who's been hiding behind protecting her, just to protect myself from the consequences. Every time I picture telling her, I can see her face changing, that trust disappearing, and the idea of being the one to take that look away from her, it's almost unbearable. Over the years, Elle and I have had conversations about fidelity. Usually when it came up in the news or happened to someone we knew. She'd always say, "If you ever cheated on me, I'd want to know. I couldn't stand living a lie." Every time she said it, I'd nod and agree, my chest tight, my palms sweating. I'd say something like, "Of course, I'd expect the same from you." And she'd smile, reassured, having no idea I was lying right to her face. It became a strange, twisted ritual, us agreeing on this hypothetical scenario while I silently lived in the reality of it. I think she meant it when she said she'd want to know, but I also think she had the luxury of saying that because she's never been on my side of the situation, weighing the truth against decades of good years since. In those moments, I felt both like the worst husband in the world and the only one who truly understood how complicated it is. Now, we're both in our late 60s. We've got gray hair, bad knees, and a slower pace to our days. We spend mornings in the garden, afternoons with the grandkids, and evenings watching old shows we've seen 100 times. And every day, I watch her growing older alongside me, still laughing at my jokes, still reaching for my hand when we cross the street, still looking at me with that same warmth she's had since we were young. It's beautiful, and it's brutal, because every moment like that reminds me what I risked, what I could have destroyed, what I did destroy in ways she can't see. Sometimes I wonder if the secret is part of why I've tried so hard to be a good husband since, as if I've been paying penance for 25 years. But no matter how much I give now, it can't erase that night. I've been her partner for nearly half a century. She thinks she knows all of me, but she doesn't. Last year, we were on vacation by the ocean. It was one of those perfect evenings, the sky streaked with orange and pink, the air warm but breezy. We were sitting on the balcony of our hotel, sipping wine, just talking about life. She told me, "I'm glad we never had any big betrayals. I don't think I could survive that." Her voice was soft but certain. I looked at her and felt the truth pressing against my ribs like it wanted to break out. I thought about how much I loved her, how much she'd given me, and how unfair it was that she didn't have the whole truth about our life together. My mouth opened and then closed. I told her instead how grateful I was for her, how lucky I felt. She smiled, squeezed my hand, and leaned her head on my shoulder. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, knowing I'd just chosen, again, to keep this secret buried. I keep circling back to one thought. If the roles were reversed, would I want to know? The honest part of me says yes, but then I think about how much that knowledge would change everything. The way you see the person, the way you remember your life together. It wouldn't just be about the betrayal 25 years ago. It'd be about every moment since, now cast in a different light. I don't know if I'd want to live with that, and I don't know if Elle should have to. But then another part of me wonders if by not telling her, I'm robbing her of the choice to decide if she wants to stay, to forgive, or to walk away. The truth is, there's no version of this that doesn't hurt. The only question is when and how much. I'm turning 69 next month. Elle and I have been married for 46 years now. The life we've built together is everything I ever wanted. And yet, this secret has been with me for more than half of it. Some days I think I'll take it to my grave, that telling her now would be selfish, just a way to make myself feel lighter while putting the weight on her. Other days I imagine sitting her down, telling her everything and accepting whatever comes after, even if it means she never looks at me the same way again. I don't know which choice is right. All I know is that I've been living with two truths for 25 years, that I love her with everything I have, and that I once betrayed her in a way she'll never know, unless I decide she should. I came here hoping for advice, but maybe what I really want is permission. Permission to forgive myself, or permission to finally tell her. I just don't know which one I'm ready for.